the problem is actually the fact that I do not have any structure on what I'm going to do with the money I get from selling my books. I would just get so excited and I'll just spend it whichever way without having proper planning. And some of the things I spent it on were not necessary or were not moving me forward as a brand.
Welcome to Make Art, the podcast that helps creatives get creative. Our community of entrepreneurs will show you how to turn your passion into a sustainable income-generating endeavor. Broadcasting from Cape Town, South Africa, here's your host, Jerome Rick.
Hello friends, this is Make Art. This is the podcast where we really try and encourage people to get creative and create their art, but above and beyond that also to devise strategies and leverage certain things that might be at their disposal in order to make that art self-sustaining. I think that really is first prize for anybody. It's wonderful to be out there as a growing artist. It's wonderful to be a budding poet, to be a performing artist or a dancer. But along with any of these disciplines, there are certain expenses, even if it is just the expense of getting to the venue and back, if you have a booking and so forth. So I always am of the belief that an event costs you nothing when your petrol is covered, your food is covered, your time is compensated. Then we're starting at zero. And from there, you must be remunerated. So if you're going out there on your own time and your own expense, you're in fact not gigging for nothing. You are in a negative. You are paying somebody else so that you can perform on their space, which may be right or wrong depending on the opportunity. I have with me today the very exciting Busisiwe Mahlangu. This lady is a writer. She's a published poet. She's an award-winning poet, in fact, an entrepreneur. She runs an NPO. What else? She hosts podcasts. She makes the most innovative earrings that you've ever seen before. Busisiwe, welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Thank you, Jerome.
Did I get everything there? I'm sure I missed a few things, but we'll get to it as we go along.
I think you got enough.
Yeah. Busi, you and I, we met at the Woordfees Arts Festival Artists Week, which was earlier this year. It was in April. And that whole experience was for me, I don't know about you, but for me, certainly, it was like a fish out of water experience because I thought I was going to go there and flex all week. But instead, they had the dancers singing and writing songs, and they had the poets acting and doing body movement things. And it wasn't until the very last day that I saw your superpower really just blow everybody away, and you got up on stage and you showed us what you're all about. What was that week like for you?
The week, I also had like similar expectations, but I did not think I'll be flexing. I thought like there'll be lots of learning, like we'll have lots of workshops, but but so much of it was around co-creating as artists. And I think that's something I had missed because of lockdown. In some ways, we have been isolated. We've been trying to find ways to co-create online, but like just having that space where we can co-create, like we can be together and like find ways to create and play and make new stuff. That was so exciting. I realized that I really missed that kind of space, like having the space where you're with your people. You can be as silly as you want. You can be as like out there as you want, and it still feels okay because you're with people who understand and who won't be like, oh, what are you doing now? Hey, these artists, but I really liked working with like different people and working with different mediums as well. Like you saying the dancing, the singing. Okay, I mean, I don't know if you did some singing, right? You did We Can Wait for Mvulo and dancing
a little
well.
bit, yes, and a bit of dancing as well, yeah. But I had a movement consultant there who helped me so that I don't look completely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's nice. We all like I also got to do some bit of cramping, and
Ooh.
that was just so nice. We had Chester, and Chester was teaching us how to do some cramping. All of it was it was such a different experience, and also in ways that I've challenged myself, like to be out there with my own sexuality, and just to do things that I've always been afraid of doing. And that was like just a whole huge experience. I thought I would be so shy, like it would be hard to socialize and stuff, but it was it was just so easy, and I really like that because I had missed being around artists and being around art spaces and just making art.
Oh, for sure. Did you also notice that it was nice not to be the most flamboyantly dressed person in the room?
Right, right.
But now there's
Yeah.
a bunch of creatives, me with my red socks, that's not such a big deal there. But like in other spaces around other people, then usually you become the standout person. Oh, there's the artist. Okay, that's the one.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
you mentioned bravery. I definitely did not see much shyness in you that week. And in fact, your poetry as well, like the content of your poetry, the subject matter, and the way that you deliver it, it requires for me such an inherent bravery in your delivery, because the way that you bring these words across has to carry the weight and the substance of what you are trying to say. Um, is that a natural bravery that comes through when you are reciting your poetry, or is it something that you have to create like almost this persona in order to do justice to the content?
Okay, so I used to write like I started writing poetry early on in life, like primary school, high school and stuff. But then like the performance part of it was late high school and first year, second year university. And what I realized was that before I go on stage, I would be like shaking, like unbelievably shaking. If you looked at me before I went on stage, you would think there's no way she'd get on stage. There is just no way she would perform today. But that's just a normal occurrence to me. Once I get on the mic, immediately I become calm. Like it's just such a strange thing. It's like something switches and I'm in this calmness, and I don't even have to tell myself like, okay, let's be calm now. It's time for us to be on the mic. People are watching. No. Immediately when I stand in front of people, I just get into this calmness. And then immediately when I get off stage, I am shaking like crazy. And then so it makes me feel like something really takes over. But I think also it's just like the stage feels natural to me. But as much as it feels natural, every time I have to go on stage, I'm shaking. I I don't know what I'm gonna do. But once I'm on stage, even if I mess up a poem or something else happens, I remember once on stage, I was performing in where was that place? I was performing in Joburg, right? And while I was performing, I was sitting in this chair, like this bar stool chair, and I fell
Oh
while I was
no.
performing.
Oh no.
I was in my moment of calmness. I got up and I said, guys, this is how people fall in love. And everyone just laughed. And I carried on with the performance. And when I got off stage, I was like, who was that? Because if it was actually really me, I would be panicking. I would be like just going crazy and thinking, how am I gonna save the show? But it just happened so naturally. But then I think the most part of it is just like being prepared, like rehearsing, preparing yourself. And then once you're prepared, even if something comes the unexpected, because you know what's happening, even if you forget your poem, you have that trust in yourself that you're ready. So it keeps happening. And the bravery of writing the things I write about, it's mostly comes from me thinking I'm not going to share this poem. Like this one that I'm writing, I'm not going to share it. And then I write it. And the next thing, I'm sharing it because I love it.
It's one of your
But yeah,
babies?
you know, but then I have that kind of safety of thinking that I am not going to share this piece. And I think that kind of allows me to explore as far and as deep as I can, because I'm not thinking about the audience. I'm not thinking about what will people say. I'm just like I'm just fishing something out of myself. And the objective of it is not to share it, but the objective of it is to write it, to have it on paper, to see it for myself. And that's how most of my poems come about. I never plan to say, okay, this one I'm going to share, unless like it's a commissioned piece and I have to write a piece on this subject. Then I already have that in mind, that I have to like write something that will relate with the audience. And that's like kind of a process that I don't really like for myself. So I'll keep trying to trick myself. No, you know what? We're just like testing out methods on how we can write this poem. This is not the final thing. This is just the draft. Yeah.
Okay, that is a powerful cheat code. I hope our listeners, our aspiring poets out there are catching that one. I think that's really awesome because it allows you to be unfiltered and it allows you to be just completely honest with yourself when you're writing. And that for me is really beautiful about your art. Is for me this enduring authenticity in your work when you get on stage, and like there's Busi, the individual who we can, we talk and we can chat and we can joke and we can carry on, but then you get on stage and it's like, who is this person? I've seen that transformation myself. But even then, even within that transformation, there's an authenticity in that person as well that is on stage, and one can see that it isn't something that is put on, man. It's something that is real and it just emerges in the context of being on stage. So well done to you for being so brave and just letting everything go when you have that mic and you're on that platform. Your book, Surviving Loss, you're a published author. You're a pretty big deal. And really, I want to talk briefly about it because I want to give your poetry lots of airtime. I want to give your poetry a lot of respect because it seems to me like your poetry creates spaces and opportunities, and then Busi, the salesperson, takes over and you take full advantage of those opportunities. Like we were at Word Fairs, for example, you're on stage and it's like, yes, guys, I'm selling my book. My book, Surviving Loss, is here. Please come and grab it. And then, yes, I have Busi Creators also here. I'm making these amazing earrings. Come and get them. And it seemed to me certainly like you were selling them like hotcakes on the night. Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about how the book came to be, and then we'll jump into Busi Creates as well.
Yeah. So on like the book Surviving Loss, it came out in 2018, and I've had like a few years, leading up to that moment in Stellenbosch, was I had like time to practice how to sell the book, how to make it move, because I realized that at some point, like it wasn't like, it didn't matter if I was like good on stage, if I don't give people, like if I don't call people to action, if I don't tell people they can get the book, if I don't, I say that the book is available, then sometimes I'll bring copies and I'll put them on my table or put them on a stall with my earrings, and then I'll perform, and people love the performance, but like they wouldn't buy the book. Some people will leave without checking out the stall and stuff like that. So I had to learn how to make people aware. I think with performances, it's actually easier because you are there on stage. People get a preview of what your book is about, and then you tell them that you have a book and they can get more of your poems. If they like 2 of your poems, they might want to read the whole book, maybe. So like it's sort of like, okay, they get a preview, but then I also had to learn how to sell the book offline when I am not like off stage, when I am not there to represent the work as well. But also I think when it comes to sales, it's really a matter of like trying things out and seeing what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Some things like selling the book sometimes is very easy, whereas in other moments selling the earrings is much easier than selling the book, because I know when I'm wearing my earrings, I can just get in the taxi and someone compliments my earrings, I let them know, oh, this is blah blah blah, and then they buy on the spot. So like with jewelry, it's easy for it to sell itself as long as I'm wearing it. People will compliment and they'll ask questions and stuff like that. But with poetry, like I can't just get on a taxi and I'm just sitting minding my business, and then someone decides to say, oh, hey, So the thing with sales is to let people be aware of your product and see how they can benefit from it.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
was that a hard skill to learn, or is it just something that you always had that was kind of inherent, this ability to identify these
I did not
opportunities?
have the skill. It took hours and hours of Googling and YouTubing, which is how I actually came across copywriting. What I wanted to do was that, before the pandemic, I was always performing. And every time I was negotiating for a booking, or I would always like find a way to squeeze in my earrings and say, okay, since you're paying this fee, I would like to bring my stall. And whatever the fee is, I'll always say that. And then I'll bring my stall there, and I'll find that, okay, I'm able to match the fee that I'm being paid on the night, and sometimes I'm able to pass it. So that
Wow, just from
also,
sales, eh?
yeah, just from my sales, and then I'll still get paid for the performance. But that kind of made me rely, like, my business, my jewelry business, kind of ended up relying on my poetry to survive. Because as long as I'm there as Busisiwe Mahlangu, I get on stage, I announce it, blah blah blah, and then I go back to my market, and people come and buy. So the business kind of relied on me being a poet in order for it to survive. So I started, like, when we entered the pandemic, that was not possible anymore. There aren't any markets. There aren't a lot of like physical shows happening. So I was like advertising the brand online, but it wasn't really picking up. Like, I wasn't really making sales. I'll get like lots of likes and shares, but very little sales, So I started like trying to find ways on how can I sell my jewelry. And that's when I found copywriting. Because like with copywriting, you have to learn how to use your words to sell. And the trickiest thing I found with copywriting, like as a creative writer, was that you have to write like you are speaking, which was so damn hard. What do you mean I can't use, like, what do you mean I can't put like a
You can't
fancy
use any
metaphor,
of these tools.
you know you know and it was just so frustrating, because you can use metaphors, you can tell stories. You have to make the person reading your copy feel like you're not selling something to them, but you are like building up that emotional connection with whatever you're selling, so your reader has that connection with the product you're selling. So initially I had to learn how to like say things as simple as they are, which was so tricky. And I realized that when it comes to poetry, sometimes there is this part of me that hides behind the big language and the fancy metaphors and the nice structure and the rhythm and all of like those techniques that you use in poetry. And when it comes to copywriting, I had to just be as bare as I am. Like, you have to write a copy that anyone can understand. Let's say like you're writing a copy in English, anyone who can read and understand English should be able to understand what you're talking about.
Simple language, easy to understand language.
Simple language, easy to understand. I remember when I was Googling about it on YouTube, they were saying like a seventh grader should be able to understand what you're saying. And it was just like, what are you guys doing? I want to be creative with my language, but you have to be creative with your ideas, but make sure that the language still remains simple to understand. And I think that is a tool I really needed, because like we were speaking earlier about grant writing and blah blah blah. When it comes to like as writers, as poets, I think it's very important for us to learn the different forms of writing, to not just like say I'm just a poet, I'm not gonna write a short story, or I'm not gonna write a dialogue, I'm not gonna write it. Okay, sales copy, I mean, it's a marketing thing, it's optional. But I'm just saying, Guti, when we learn, like, these skills can be used. Like, my skill as a copywriter, I can use it to sell my books. Like, it introduced me to a language of simplicity. We sometimes, when it comes to grant writing, we try to be so fancy and so condensed. We are so in our heads. We think like the person who would be reading up about our project would understand our vision like magically, but it made me realize that I had to challenge myself as a writer to be able to learn other skills as a writer. How can I use writing to my advantage? Yes, I know how to write poetry. I know how to write short stories. How do I represent myself now? Now that the poem is written, the short story is written, the book exists. How do I sell it? How do I and that's the thing, is always I always do this. I think of myself as a small business, as a business, right? So as a business, in a business you have different like divisions. You have your marketing, you have your creative self has created a project. It's here, it's sitting, it's been printed out, or it exists, or it's online or whatever. The project exists. Now another part of you has to step in. It's either you will be doing your own marketing, or someone else will be doing the marketing for you. You'll be your own agent, or someone else will be the agent for you. Or but like those things are very important, and you cannot just overlook them, especially if you want to grow as a business. If you take yourself as a business, then you won't overlook those parts. But if you are like, I'm just passionate, I'm just doing this out of love, which is totally okay, then you can overlook those parts, and your career will keep growing and growing by itself. And then you'll get to a point where you want to like do that intentionally and say, okay, the book is out, we need marketing. Because I feel like we need different skills, and it's okay if we don't have those skills. We can outsource them if it's possible. If you can't outsource them, YouTube is your friend. I've learned so many things from YouTube. I don't want to lie. Like,
Oh, for
I
sure, for
swear,
sure.
YouTube University.
Yes, yes, you can say that again. YouTube is just an amazing school, and it's a wonderful place to learn. But what you're mentioning there is so true, eh? Like I encounter so many creatives, and it's, you've got so many views of your video on YouTube, and you've won these accolades and so forth. But th- because they never made that switch into business mode, they fail to capitalize on the opportunities there to generate revenue. So people they are successful, in the sense that their name is known, and in the sense that they have received these recognitions, but they aren't
Mhm.
reaping the financial benefits of that because they were unable to leverage these other things. And that's really, like, that's where the payday is. The thing is the thing that puts you in front of people. But it's exactly like you said, like, the factory has now churned out this book. Busi, the factory, has now produced the book, and now Busi, the marketing manager, needs to now see what's going to happen next. Or Busi,
Mm.
the logistics individual, the distribution and logistics person, she needs to figure out how to get this to people. And if you don't
Yeah.
hear yourself like that, then you're missing out on opportunities. And you are just making such a great case for that here. This is such a brilliant case study for how one can leverage your creativity
Yeah.
in order to make a little bit of money.
Can I please add something? You know what? Like when my book came out, so I have a publisher. What happens is that I buy my books at a discounted price from my publishers, and then I can sell it. So what I learned from that experience, like I would go on a performance and I'll sell like 10 or 20 books, and then I'll come out and I have all this money now. you know and I feel like, wow, I made all this money, and then I forget that actually, like, I would still need more books for my other performances. And what was kicking my ass in the beginning when my book came out was financial management. It was just kicking my ass, because if I sell one copy today and I make 180, I'm like, wow, I have 180. Let me get some pizza. Or
Mm.
I tend to whatever problem that's now that needs my money now. So I realized that I needed financial planning as well. Sometimes we, like, a book comes out, like whatever the project comes out, and we are not even paying attention on how much we've spent on the project. Like, we're not tracking those numbers.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
How much did it take you to put your album together?
marketing
we're
it,
not looking at,
talking about promoting it. If you marketed it, you should be taking a share of that as well. You should be costing all those things in, and we tend to just throw that away, like that was my time. I'm not gonna cost that, but you should be costing that actually.
yeah. But also, like, sometimes, like, we're not even noting that you had to pay the producer this amount, and you have, like, we're not writing these numbers down. We're not taking them in sometimes, and we're not tracking them. So even like when the project is doing so well, because we are living hand to mouth, I realized that I was living hand to mouth with my book, and that was okay. There was nothing else I could do about it. But I wasn't tracking how much the book was bringing in, because we are living hand to mouth on the project, right? It's so easy for us to feel like the project is not doing well when you're not making sales, but you don't realize that the project has been bringing you this amount every month, an average of this amount every month. And it's just that now this month is not bringing in that much. But then when you can look back and say, but look at here and here and here, that's something that keeps you going. So I'm saying, with like what I really missed on when it comes to the finances, it was like tracking the numbers, like how much the project is bringing in, how much am I living on, can I rebuy my copies and stuff like that, so that I can see like, oh, this is actually where the problem is. Because I realized that, oh, the problem is actually the fact that I do not have any structure on what I'm gonna do with the money I get from selling my books. I would just get so excited, and I'll just spend it whichever way without having proper planning. And some of the things I spent it on were not necessary, or were not moving me forward as a brand. So I just think the finances of it, sometimes as artists, we overlook it. We are happy when the money is coming in. Like, I wanted to stop this thing of like struggling artists.
Yes.
I don't want to be a struggling artist. I don't want to. Like,
can we please kill that myth? Can we please put that thing to bed?
There are always people there will always be people who benefit from our art, and we have to make sure that we are those people. Like, I just don't want to be a struggling artist. So I keep trying to find ways on how I cannot be a struggling artist. And that means also like being accountable to my own actions, to say, bad Busi, you made 2,000 rand on your copies last week, and you used all that money on your personal stuff. You did not save at least a percentage of it so that you can rebuy some few copies. So like, it's to be accountable and say, yes, I know I am struggling at the moment, but I really did not need to get 1, 2, 3. I could have like been patient, bought more copies, sold them, and then got that thing with the profit. So it's just like, also you have to be like accountable with your own management skills when it comes to the finances and your negotiating skills. Why are you always allowing people to pay you less than your booking fee? Why are you always like you were saying, why are you always taking yourself to performances, getting there and performing and not getting any money? You come back home, you're stressing about how you're gonna buy bread that same week. So like, we have to like be uncomfortable, and like, even if negotiating is hard, you have to do it, even if you lose the deal or whatnot. That's how we learn to represent ourselves. And what I like about having that skill is that even when the time comes where you want someone to represent you, you know what you're looking for, because you have your own methods and your vision, and you have your own understanding of what you would like in a manager or in an agent or whatever. So I'm just saying, like,
exactly. And that agent is gonna have to. That agent is gonna have to give you major value, because look at all the things you are able to do for yourself. So they're gonna have to be able to at least meet that and exceed that, hopefully. So it gives you a sense of what kind of value you want an agent to bring to the party, or a manager to bring to the party. Busi, my big takeaway there, you are just giving people the keys here, man. This is amazing. My big takeaway there is, like, if you make 180 rand, you can't spend 180 rand, because some of that money needs to go back into the business. Tell me this thing of a struggling artist. I love when you said that, because it is this whole this whole misconception, this picture of the artist must struggle for the art and they must suffer. It is really something that I'm hoping to just cut the head off that myth and consign it to history. But do you find within poetry circles, like within the culture and the circles that you operate in, that that is a pervading culture? Is it something that is out there that people kind of embrace? Like, I'm a struggling artist.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've had like two occasions where like two different people told me that I'm selling out because I was doing like corporate gigs and I was working with like businesses and stuff like that. And they were saying that I am selling out. And I think it's, it's just how people view money. It's just their own philosophy of how they view money. Because I remember growing up, I used to think like people who are wealthy are bad people. Like, like there's these things like money changes a person and stuff like that. I used to believe those kind of things. And I think it's just the philosophy of it. And in the arts, like if you are like working with different, maybe you're working in the corporate space, there's sometimes that idea that you are selling out. You should be all about the revolution and the people and the fight should be on the street protesting. Yeah, and also I did not always think about like this because I entered performance via poetry slams, so I knew that I had to compete and win and beat everyone, so that I can get the money.
Yes, yes. And slams are like a street vibe. It's more,
Yeah,
it's in your face, and it kind of also subscribes to that whole thing of I'm a poet, full stop. I'm not a corporate sellout. I'm not a this. I'm not a that.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really interesting to hear that in the
So
poetry circles, it's also prevalent because I find that among musicians as
yeah.
well.
So for me, I think of it as, yes, I'm an artist, but I'm also providing a service, right? I'm a service provider. And sometimes the thing is that sometimes we think of the art as that thing to pass time. But we have to know the world needs art. We are providing it. We are service providers. Full stop. Service providers get paid.
A way I always look at it is that you've created assets for yourself, and these assets, they are worth money. These assets are not worth nothing. The person who is crafting earrings, their assets are their earrings. The jewelry maker, the person who is producing goods, those things are the assets. But for us, our assets are just abstract. So my assets are my grant templates, my festival applications
Mm,
that I've done in the past. You've had to write those things and you've had to create them. And now these assets are worth something. They are valuable and they must work for you. They must earn value in
mm.
some way. Buzi, can we just briefly talk about how gigs are working for you now, since gigs are now again no longer a thing? At this point, our president has recently spoken to us. We are in the middle of a 14-day lockdown, no gatherings of any sort, nothing of the like. And it's
Yeah.
really, in my mind, it's kind of a reset also, because you keep thinking in a few months, next year, a few weeks from, you keep thinking things are going to return to normal.
Mm,
But I think it's clear
right.
now that
And it's been
there's
more than a year now.
yes, it's been more than a year. So perhaps there is no such thing as normal in the way that we perceive it to be, and that we think it's gonna be. How are you gigging? How are you getting around? What are you doing in terms of live performances, promoting your goods, promoting your
Yo,
services?
it's been so hard, Nem. It's really been so hard. Um, but I've also had like the privilege to like gig almost every month. Like I'll have one or two gigs that will cover my financial expenses. Um, and most of the performances have had, uh, like one I had to like record the performance on my phone, send it to them, and then most of them were we were shooting, like it was just the artist and the crew, and then we're shooting, and then the shows were streamed online. And I think also like when we were in level 1, level 2, level 3, I got a lot of like gigs where like the audience was there. And because I did not know how long that would keep going, I was like doing my best to save as much as I can, so that like when the performances dry up, or if they ever dry up, then I still have money to survive on. So I had to like let go of so many luxuries in my life so that I can like be secured in a way. So I feel like it's not that sustainable to depend on performances fully. I sat down and I looked at myself as a writer. What other skills do I have? Because I can edit people's work, right? I can help people with their own projects, like consult, help them prepare for their own projects. I can write a copy, which I did not know at the time, and I had to learn online, like I mentioned. So I had to also look at other skills, would see, okay, what can I do? Like I ran a podcast show. So like those are other skills of mine that because because I was doing poetry full time, they were not that sharpened. And now I had the time to sharpen other skills and to see with like, okay, I can offer this thing. I used to also do poetry workshops on Instagram, and the idea was to like package that into like a workshop people can buy in and attend and blah blah blah. But I stopped working on that thing. But I'm just saying with like there are just so many like we're not one dimensional as artists, right? There are so many things that you can provide. This might actually be a time for you to build your online presence, your online footprint, to get out there, to make sure that your work is documented, that you are there online. Your like people can easily find your work. So like I know it's really hard to think of ideas because we are in a pandemic and it's so stressful and it is so taxing and there's just so much grief, and having to come up with ideas and ways to survive in a time like that can be so hard. But if you have a community of artists with you, you don't have to like do this thing alone, like this thinking and trying to figure out how you can like be with your community, be with your support. I remember there's one of my favorite authors, Malaika Matlatsi. She said like people always ask her how does she get the time to do all the things that she's doing in her life, and she said like what she like it's not time that she needs, it's actually support, you know, support, like a support system that keeps you up on your feet, keep you going when you're down, comforts you, you know, like that kind of support is what keeps you going in life. So have that community of artists, don't be alone. It's such a hard time right now. Like have that community of artists, can be online, can be on via WhatsApp, but don't neglect the community. You're gonna need it and they're gonna need you as well. And coming up with, and also just remembering that you're not one dimensional. There's more you can offer than being on stage. There are things that you've been putting off on building your brand or building yourself that you couldn't do because you're busy like moving from one gig to another, or open mic to open mic, or whatever you're busy doing as a performer. But now you have the time to like actually go back to that list of things that you wanted to do, that you know, like if I have more videos online, this might, I have a profile. If I have 1, 2, 3 online, like work on those ideas again. You said you wanted to bring this project to life. Go back to it, work on it, bring it to life. Sometimes like the end goal is not always finances, but to sharpen your craft. So look at like all those things, like go back to the drawing board and realize what can you do now? What is one thing that you can do right now, and do it.
Yeah, preach, Busi, preach. This is solid gold. This is awesome. I just love all these ideas, and it's practical things, and it's things that you can really, really apply. I just want to briefly talk about you. You mentioned your podcast in passing. I think it's only right that we give it a little bit of airtime here. You're hosting a podcast called Poets Hub SA. How did that happen? How did it come about? And how are you finding it?
Okay, so I'm hosting Poets Hub SA. Poets Hub SA is a podcast that is founded by the National Poet Laureate Hub. So the National Poet Laureate Hub is like a little over a year and a few months. It's started by Mongane wa Liserote, our poet laureate, because like he saw a gap. You know, this is our third poet laureate in the country, and he wanted to make change. Like initially in the past, like poet laureate was offered sort of like as like a lifetime achievement award, not as an actual office where you have to work and like improve the poetry industry in the country. And that is his vision. So Poets Hub SA came about like, how do we help young writers? How do you create space for young writers? And that's how the podcast came about. We're profiling young writers, poets, performers. We're having conversations with them. We're creating a space where even listeners like who are still learning in their craft can learn something. But that's like just one of the projects that the Poet Laureate has planned and executing to make poetry more accessible, to make poetry better, and also like what we were talking about, like the business of poetry and all that. So I really enjoy working in like with the Poet Laureate Hub, because I feel like I'm doing something that is just beyond the moment. But it's really is it really is a change of history. It's a big moment. It's the first time we have like a Poet Laureate office in the country.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's just so amazing, and obviously like groundbreaking, because and I wish we can do more. I really wish we can do more, but everything has to start somewhere. And to be part of the podcast, to be able to to feature writers, to learn from them, to have the audience learn from them as well, has been a really big privilege, and it's the kind of work that I don't take lightly. And I'm also learning, because this is the first time I'm a host of anything like of a podcast show on that. Like, so I'm learning. It's been a learning experience. So much doing and then going back to the drawing board, doing and then going back to the drawing board, learning, so much studying, so much research that goes on in the background. But I'm really excited about like what's happening, and I would like to see the hub grow more and reach more people, do more work. You know, like this that kind of work you do where you say this is my heart work, like this is the work of my heart.
Yes.
Yeah, working in the hub is the work of my heart. I really would like to do more. Like I'm running my NPO, Lwazi Lubanzi projects, and it has been on standstill for a bit. But the idea was to like, we were going to schools, and we were doing creative writing classes in schools, in schools around Mamelodi, right? Because I grew up in schools where we did not have arts. You know, we did not have that kind of privilege to know that you can be a theater maker. That can be your career choice. You know?
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
like never had that kind of option. And the idea with Lwazi Lubanzi projects is to bring the knowledge of the arts into communities that don't have that kind of access. So working in the hub, I feel like it's like it makes me realize that vision more, to be part of that vision. It's so fulfilling, because that's the kind of work I've always wanted to do. And sometimes like the limit will be resources or time, and now I get to do that for the poetry in South Africa, and it makes me so happy.
Beautiful, beautiful. Really, everything of the best. I wish you every success with Poets Hub, with Lwazi Lubanzi as well. I just hope that it goes from strength to strength, because that kind of work is so important. Developing young talent, and seeing that that poetry is still a living and dynamic culture in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time. And it's down to the work that you and people like you are doing. So yes, my hat is just off to you. I think that's awesome. Busi, I think what I really appreciate about everything that you do is that it all makes sense, man. It all hangs together. It all fits. It's not because you get people who do lots of things and they just do lots of things. But you've managed to somehow take all these things and make them fit under this umbrella and make sense as like, of course, this is Busisiwe. This all fits with who she is and with a personal mission statement. Do you have any advice in terms of how one chooses? Because I think as a creative, there are so many opportunities to get involved. People are reaching out to you all the time, help me with this, help me with that. Come speak
Yeah.
at this thing, come be an affiliate at this thing. Like, how do you choose those things to make sure that they fit?
Yeah, sometimes like you just have to do the thing to know if it works for you or not. Other times for me, like when I'm researching a topic and I'm getting so excited, I'm like, wow, what is this thing? I want to know more about it. I'm like, this might be something, this might be something. So if like there's something that you really enjoy, that could also be your thing. Don't put yourself in misery. Don't put yourself in misery because I said it's very good advantage to have copywriting skills as a writer. When you don't like copywriting, you just don't. So like don't put yourself in misery. Do more research on like, let's say someone calls you up and say, hey, Busi, I'd like you to be an MC for this show, and you're busy researching and you're trying to know more about it. Then you do it and you liked it. So allow yourself an opportunity to experiment things or research things and see if you like them or not. It's much easier to do something when you really enjoy it, when you're curious about it, when you want to learn more about it. You get into like this sort of like obsession about it. You want to learn more, you want to consume as much as you can about this thing. Then it might really be your thing, because this is something that you can be in and you can evolve in, because you'll keep wanting to learn about it. So yeah,
Yeah, that
I don't
sounds
know if
like a
that
very
helps.
straightforward. No, that's very helpful. That sounds like a very straightforward measure, and a way of just
Yeah.
measuring whether this thing fits with my brand or whether it doesn't. Is whether am I excited about it? And I think when I look at the
Yeah.
things you are involved in, these are all things that you are excited about. I just in closing want to give you a bit of space to talk about anything exciting that is coming up. Where can people reach you? Where can people follow you? Where can people order the book? Where can we find out more about these earrings that you're making? And yeah, just in general about Busisiwe Mahlangu, the brand, what's happening, and how do we stay up to date?
Okay. So to find, I'll start with my copywriting because it's a new baby.
Hey, well done.
So to find my services as a copywriter, you can go to busipoholo.com. That is busiboholo.com, which is a website that's still under construction.
Nice. Oh, I'm going there right now.
And please, it's still under construction, but yeah, you can like take note of that one
Yeah, so
of the domain.
people mustn't be offended if the walls aren't painted yet, and if there's maybe still plastic covering the furniture. It's under construction.
Yeah, I also like keep publishing it to see like how things work, how the SOE is running and all that
Mm,
stuff. Yeah, but it will be done soon. And you can find me on Instagram. It's Busi Mahlangu _ at the end. And you can find my jewelry line on Busi Creates _ at the end. And then anywhere on YouTube, Facebook, Google, Busisiwe Mahlangu. Just type Busisiwe Mahlangu and I'll pop up.
Ladies and gentlemen, Busi Mahlangu, in the words of Jay-Z, she's not a businessman, she's a business man.
Yeah.
Busi, thank you so much. That was really, really awesome. Friends, you can support the Make Art podcast by going to patreon.com/Jerome Rex. There are ways there that you can contribute and keep this thing on air and just keep it moving.
Yeah.